Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a video that has been highly requested, which is how much does it cost to live in the Dominican Republic. But before we start, I do want to give some disclaimers. There are various reasons that I have not made this video before, even though I understand that it would be very helpful and useful to people who are thinking about or considering moving here. There are some reasons that I have not made it so far. Let me just give you some reasons that I have not made this video before and some disclaimers about why this might not be all you need to know about living expenses. Number one is that living expenses can be quite personal, and I mean that in a few ways. First of all, since everything I talk about is based on my own personal experience, that would require me to share what I spend. And I mean, I don't have to do that. I don't have to share with anybody what I spend. So you're welcome. I wouldn't dare ask anyone else what they spend in a typical month, like maybe in friendly conversation, but I think for most people, money is generally a touchy subject, or at least it can be. Maybe it's just me. But also, living expenses can be very individual and based on the lifestyle you want to live. So I can't say you're only going to need X amount of money to live here because I don't know how you want to live. I don't know what you buy. I don't know what you like to spend your money on. And so it really depends on the person. Another reason that I have not touched on this topic before is that it can vary very widely depending on where you live in this country. If you live in a small pueblo, like a village in the countryside, you're not going to spend nearly as much as someone who lives in the capital, in Santo Domingo, like me. So it really depends on where you live in the country. So obviously I cannot speak for the whole country. My experience has just been in Santo Domingo. And my third disclaimer and reason I have not talked about living expenses before is that I can't really answer your questions or speak from my personal experience about probably one of the biggest expenses that people are wondering about, which is the cost of an apartment, the cost of rent, utilities, water, gas. All of that I cannot speak on personally because I've mentioned this before, but the school I work for provides an apartment for their international teachers. Utilities are covered. I don't know what any of that stuff costs. I don't know how much this apartment rents for, so I cannot give you specific answers about rent or utilities or how much I spend on those different things. And I know I'm super blessed to be in this situation, but yeah, I really have no idea how much water, electricity, gas, Wi-Fi, I don't know how much all that costs. All I know is that electricity is expensive. That's the extent of my knowledge. I don't know what expensive is, but it's expensive. People complain about it being expensive, and then when you factor in air conditioners into the equation, that bumps up the price even more. When I first was moving here, they told me to only use the air conditioning at night because it can run up the electric bill pretty easily, so I've stuck to that, but I don't know how much it costs. Anyways, from what I've heard about rent, I know rent can be as little as $90, and that might be expensive to some people. Like, why would you pay $90? But for other people, I'm sure it's shockingly low, and that can get you at least a small one-bedroom apartment. But if you're looking for something a little bit higher end, I know you can still get a good place for about $200 US. So I'm talking in dollars right now. And on the even higher end side, if you're looking for a really high scale lifestyle, I've heard of rent being at least $1,200. I'm sure it could be more. That's a very wide difference. You can basically find anything for any amount in between. You can find apartments that are both furnished or unfurnished, and that brings me to the end of my knowledge on the housing category. Like I said, I don't pay rent, I don't pay utilities, I don't know how much that stuff costs. I am thinking about doing a video in the future where I survey other people. Let me know if you would be interested in that. As I mentioned, that is the end of my personal experience about how much rent and utilities cost. All I know is that probably the apartments you would find here are going to be much cheaper than their equivalent in a major US city. Like I said, all of these things can be highly personal, but depending on how willing you are to accommodate yourself to the way of living here, you can probably find a place that's much cheaper than its equivalent in a major US city. Now that I've gone through my disclaimers, let's get to the actual meat of the video and the information that I actually can provide for you. I track my spending in an app. I do it manually. Whenever I pay money or I get money, I enter it all into this app. I think it's just called Spending Tracker or something. It's a pretty basic, simple app. I know there's ones that you can connect to your credit card or your bank or something, but this one I just enter everything manually. It goes into the app, I choose a category, and so I have all these different categories for each month and how much I spend each month in different categories. I've lived here for over 1 year, probably about 16 months, 17 months maybe. So what I did was take the average of my spending in 7 different categories over the course of these 16 months. I did not include any spending while I was in the States. If I took a trip to the US, I didn't include that in this average. And I also didn't include the months where I was not here, like last July. That entire entire month I was in the US, so I did not include months like that. Some of the months, yes, I was here for a little bit less time, like December or January when I was away during Christmas break, or last August I also came a little bit later in the month, but for the most part, most of them have been full months of my spending here. The 7 categories that I'm going to talk about are: number 1, groceries; number 2, cell phone service; number 3, transportation; then water. And when I mean water, I'm talking about the big bottles I have to buy for drinking water. And number 5, receiving packages, which is obviously not something everyone will have the same if they even want to order packages. That's dependent on the person, but I thought I'd include that in there just for fun. And number 6, eating out. And number 7, going to the gym. So let's get started. In the grocery category, I spent on average $174 per month. My highest month of spending was October 2020. So I moved here in August 2020 and I realized they have a lot of stuff here. The grocery store is a lot more fully stocked than the one in Honduras. I have so many more options. There are so many more American products. And I realized my spending was going up, and it maxed out in October 2020 after about 2 months of living there. And I realized, whoa, this needs to slow down a little bit. So in October 2020, I spent about $324 on groceries. Since then, I have made different decisions, looked more for generic brands, tried to buy less American brand stuff, and then just overall tried to buy stuff that was cheaper, more produce, and less other fancy things. So after that, my spending did start to go down. The month where I spent the least on groceries was actually just in December 2021. I did leave December 15th, so I only went grocery shopping one time, and I spent about $50. Since I was going away for several weeks, I was trying to eat the food that I already had and not waste anything, so I only went grocery shopping one time that month. But yes, on average, I spend about $174 on groceries. I shop at Bravo, in case you're interested and you want to know. That's the supermarket where I go to, and I find that it has pretty much everything I need. It's not so reliable sometimes, depending on fruit. Like, in the US, you would always find strawberries, for example, but here it's only really when they're in season, and then sometimes they don't look so good. It's not as dependable as a US grocery store, but I will say that it works perfectly fine for me. I just adjust what I buy depending on what they have sometimes, but the basics are always there. If you are looking for some ways to save money as you're living abroad, as I mentioned, I really tried to cut down on my grocery spending as I maxed out at over $300 in 1 month. If you want to know more tips about how to save money while living abroad, and I advise that you check out this video right here, which I will link above, where I talk about how I'm able to save at least half my income living abroad. Our next category is cell phone service, and in this one, those of you who have US plans, brace yourselves. I spend about 76 cents per month on cell phone service on average. So that sounds very crazy low. The reason is that I have a prepaid SIM card, so I don't have a plan that I pay for every single month. I mainly use Wi-Fi. My apartment has Wi-Fi. The school where I work has Wi-Fi. I don't go to that many other places, at least not where I'm spending time on my phone. So I just have a prepaid SIM card. I load money on it when I need to buy something, when I know I'm going to be out and I want to buy a gigabyte of data for a day so that I have a way to be in communication while I'm out and about. That is the only reason that I ever buy data. There were many months where I was a homebody and I didn't go out, so I didn't buy data. If you take out all the months where the total was 0, then the average is about $1.30. Still nothing crazy, not at all comparable to cell phone bills, at least from what I'm used to in the US. Pretty proud of that category. If you do want to learn more about cell phone bills and cell phone service and how to get a prepaid card and what I do for cell phone service, and I do have a video about that, check it out, linked right here. Now let's jump into the third category, which is transportation. My average spending in a month was $8.92. Transportation includes things like Ubers, public cars, which are shared cars. Everyone just gets in the car and it has a route that it takes, or buses. And any trips I took, I also included the bus for that. This one is pretty low because I don't go anywhere. The month where I spent the most on transportation was March 2021. I spent about $27 that month. I don't know what I was doing actually. probably just Uber's adding up. There were some months where I took trips on buses, but buses are not that expensive either and relatively cheap. There are also various months where I spent $0 on transportation. Our next category is water. As I mentioned, water is not the water that is running through my sinks and showers and everything. It means the big bottles of water that we have to buy that is filtered because the tap water is not drinkable. So my roommates and I take turns buying this. Last year we ordered 3 at a time. This year we order 4 at a time from the nearest colmado. When I order it, sometimes I tip the guy, I don't know, like different amounts. So maybe it varies a little bit. Maybe it varies because I had to buy it twice one month or once one month. Anyways, my average spending on the filtered water, drinking water, is $6.10. The only variability really is how much I might tip the guy who's delivering it. Other than that, the water is not a huge expense, but it is something to factor in. Next, we get to our most unnecessary category, which is packages. I've mentioned this before, but I use TPAC. If you want to learn more about what a courier service is, I'll link this video above as well. Basically, I have to pay per pound when I get packages, but the minimum is 0.8 pounds. So even if it's just a letter and it weighs nothing, I'm still going to pay the price for 0.8 of a pound. I'm not particularly proud of this category, but my average spending is $27.25 on packages. It's not great, but my lowest month of spending was about $2.44. My highest month, let's just say I went a little crazy on the Black Friday sale on Built Bars, and I stocked up for several months. Ordered several different packages of Built Bars, which are a little bit weighty. There was a month that I spent over $100 on packages. Anyways, let's move on to the next category because like I said, maybe you don't want to order packages. Maybe you just want to completely accommodate yourself to living here, and that's great. More power to you. The next category is also something that's kind of unnecessary depending on what your lifestyle is, and that is eating out. Over 16 months, my average spending per month was $21.02. Most of this has been ordering something on Pedidos Ya. If I'm being honest, probably ordering ice cream. Sometimes I have gone out to restaurants. Like I said, I'm just a homebody. I don't really go that many places and I don't eat out. I haven't been thrilled by a lot of the restaurants that I've ordered from here, but the ones that I go to in person have been good. I'm pretty good about cooking and providing food for myself, so I don't order out too much. Besides that, the prices vary depending on what you want, where you're getting it from. You can get something that's much cheaper than its equivalent in the US, but depending on the region or the restaurant, you can also get something that is pretty comparable in price to eating out at a restaurant in the US. And finally, the last category is the gym. I pay the same amount every single month. I pay 1,000 pesos and that gets me covered for the month. I just pay again next month, and if I don't go to the gym one month, I don't have to pay that month. I mean, you pay the start of the month, so if I don't go, it's my fault. But for example, in December when I left on the 15th for the US, I didn't pay for the gym because I figured I'm not really going to go as much as is going to make it worth it, because you can also pay per day. You can pay 100 pesos, at least at my gym, to just go for the day. So if you go less than 10 times in a month, it's not really worth it to pay the monthly fee, in my opinion. And my average spending on the gym is about $17.46, so 1,000 pesos. There are no membership fees or sign-up fees or anything like that. It's just one flat 1,000 pesos that you pay when you go at the start of the month. And with that, we have finished my 7 categories. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful for those who have been requesting it. I hope this helps you figure out if this is a good place for you to live. Once again, these are just my averages over the 16 months that I have lived here. They might be totally different for you. Some people might be listening to these numbers and saying you spend way too much money. Some people might be listening to these saying, wow, how do you spend so little? I don't know. These are just my averages. Again, I did not talk about all the categories I've spent money on, but these are the pretty basic categories that I do spend at least something on each month and that I consider pretty necessary to living. Again, spending is highly individual and dependent on what kind of lifestyle you want to live. So take this with a grain of salt. That brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.